परमार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं तं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Gurubhyo Namaha. We continue with chapter 3, Karma Yoga, the essence of Bhagavad Gita and Maharishi's commentary. Yagnarthat karmanaha anyatra lokah ayam karma bandhanaha तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर। सह यज्ञाः प्रजाः सृष्ट्वा पुरा उवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वम् एषवः अस्तु इष्टकामधुक्। Here is the English translation for these verses 9 and 10. Accepting actions performed for yajna, this world is in bondage to action. For the sake of yajna, engage in action free from attachment. I repeat again. Accepting actions performed for yajna, this world is in bondage to action. For the sake of yajna, engage in action free from attachment. Verse number 10. In the beginning, having created men along with yajna, the Lord of creation said, By this yajna shall ye prosper, and this shall bring forth the fulfillment of desires. Again, in the beginning, having created men along with yajna, the Lord of creation said, by this yajna shall you prosper, and this shall bring forth the fulfillment of desires. Now, let us review the verse number 8, where we left off. Do your allotted duty. Action is indeed superior to inaction. Even the survival of your body would not be possible without action. Here, Bhagavan is asking Arjuna to do his allotted duty, and this comprises all actions which enable a man to survive and to evolve. Again, Bhagavan says, allotted duty is that which is natural for one to do and that for which one is born. It is in accord with one's own dharma, and it is the action which is an innocent link between self-consciousness and cosmic consciousness. And this is also the action which serves as a way to achieve God consciousness, the fulfillment of life. And further, the rightness of such action lies in that in performing this, a man feels no strain, and they are not a burden in life. In one stroke, they maintain life and lead to evolution. And further, Bhagavan also says, action is indeed superior to inaction. Even the survival of your body would not be possible without action. And finally, when Bhagavan says, do your allotted duty, that is the natural duty, because he is not saying just do your duty. And the most natural duty is meditation. Meditate. Meditation is the key to the performance of one's allotted duty. It is the direct way to make glorious every aspect of life, for it transforms a life of bondage in the world into the divine life of eternal freedom in cosmic consciousness. And here one experiences the self as separate from activity. Then cosmic consciousness in turn develops into God consciousness through devotion. And this devotion is the most highly refined type of action. And it unites in the light of God two separate aspects of the cosmic consciousness, the self and the non-self, or the self and the activity. So this is the highest blessing of this action, natural action, called meditation. Now coming to verse 9, Bhagavan is saying that accepting actions performed for yajna, the world is in bondage to action. And for the sake of yajna, you engage in action free from attachment. So here the key words are actions performed for yajna, bondage to action, for the sake of yajna, engage in action, and action free from attachment. When Bhagavan is saying engage in action free from attachment, he means having stabilized the state of bliss consciousness and thereby clearly realize the self as separate from activity, you engage in action and do your allotted duty as enjoined in the previous verse. the whole process of action brings the doer out of himself. So the action is a direct way to bring the self out into the field of relativity. And this limits the unlimited absolute self, and the effect is called the binding influence of action. So again, the process of action brings the doer out of himself. Then the action is a direct way bringing the self out into the field of relativity. So by this what happens? This limits the unlimited absolute self, and the effect then is called the binding influence of action. Here Bhagavan gives Arjuna a technique whereby action itself may be used to take the individual back to his eternal status of absolute being. Now let us see what is yajna. Yajna is action which helps evolution. Any action in the world which tends towards absolute being helps to free man from bondage. And actions in any other direction result in bondage. So again, any action which takes you towards absolute being helps to free man from bondage. And actions in any other direction result in bondage. Here, Bhagavan is drawing a distinction between those actions which are a means of liberation and those which lead to bondage. In general, yajna commonly means a religious performance or a holy ritual, a sacrificial ceremony in which gifts are offered to the presiding deity and are consumed in fire. But here, Bhagavan means that this act of going to the transcendental being and thereby bringing the attention from the gross external experience of the world to the state of the transcendent, and then allowing all thoughts and desires to converge upon the transcendent, just as objects of oblation consumed in the sacrificial fire. So here, yajna is not confined to the narrow limits of a particular ceremony. It is a way of life which furthers evolution. It is important to understand that the interpretation of yajna in terms of transcendental consciousness does not in any way undermine the validity of Vedic rites performed to please different gods or devas. Whatever a man does by way of activity after the practice of transcendental meditation, it helps him to integrate this transcendental consciousness with the waking state of consciousness and thereby to develop cosmic consciousness. So, if during such activity he cherishes the act of pleasing the higher powers of nature, we call them as gods, this is in no way hinders the progress. It no way hinders his progress. On the contrary, it brings him greater accomplishment through the support he receives from these powers of nature. Here, the main purpose of this section is to connect man with the more evolved beings in creation, we call devas, so that he may receive their goodwill, their blessings, their support, and their help in improving every aspect of his life. Here, the aim is to lead every soul to the state of perfection, and the highest and most exalted state of existence, the God consciousness. And this is the scope of the yajna. let us try to further understand this yajna. It is the subject of the Vedas. The Vedas are divided into various branches called shakhas, and each shakha expounds its yajna, covering the whole range of life, both relative and absolute, and aiming at glorifying life in all its aspects, the gross, subtle, and the transcendent. Now, every shaka has three sections. One section is called Karma Kanda, the second is called Upasana Kanda, and the third section is called Jnana Kanda. Karma Kanda, referred to as chapter of action, deals with the gross aspect of the yajna, which is designed to improve the gross aspect of life, the body, and all that relates to it in the world. So this gross aspect of yajna establishes the duties of men belonging to different levels of evolution, living in different times, in different places, and under different circumstances, so that they do not act against the laws of nature. That means they do not violate the laws of nature or the dharma. And so this helps a man to evolve by virtue of whatever he does or experience on the gross level of life. Now the second section of the shakha is called Upasana Kanda, and this is the chapter of worship and deals with the subtler aspects of yajna, which win the blessings of the higher powers of nature, the Vedic gods or devas. This section has its own gross and subtle aspects. The gross aspect deals with ritualistic performances to please different Vedic gods and win their blessings, while the subtle aspect deals with training the mind to contact higher powers and receive their blessings upon all achievements in life. Now, the main purpose of this section is to connect man with the more evolved beings in creation, we call devas, so that he may receive their goodwill, their blessings, and their help in improving every aspect of his life. Now, the third section of this shakha is called Jnana Kanda, which is the chapter of knowledge, and it contains the wisdom of eternal life. The Upanishad belongs to this section. Each shakha again has its own Upanishad to show the way of contacting Brahman, the ultimate reality, for all those people to whom traditionally the teaching of that shakha applies. So again, each shakha has its own Upanishad, and it shows the way of contacting the Brahman, the ultimate reality. So the Upanishad of each shakha brings this wisdom of the Absolute and the way to transcend the relative fields of life, and thereby infuse the divine nature into all spheres of human existence. So in this way, each Vedic shakha contains wisdom to shape the entire field of human life in such a way that all its aspects, physical, mental, and spiritual, are perfectly coordinated with each other, and they are coordinated with each other on every level, and at the same time are in perfect harmony with the entire scheme of evolution. So again, the aim is to lead every soul to the state of perfection, the highest and most exalted state of existence, which is God consciousness. And such is the comprehensive scope of yajna. Now in the next verse, Bhagavan is saying, in the beginning, having created men along with yajna, the Lord of creation said, "By this yajna shall you prosper, and this shall bring forth the fulfillment of all desires." So here we see that the yajna main purpose is to help evolution, and it should ultimately lead man to the highest state of evolution, which is realization of God. And every step of evolution is connected with yajna. So thus yajna upholds life from its beginning to its ultimate goal. And this is what Bhagavan means when he says, having created men along with yajna. God is the source of all creation, and man's link with him is through the pure transcendental consciousness. Through this pure transcendental consciousness, which is the absolute consciousness, or we call it the Turiya. All of the creation came out of this absolute level of life, and the Creator proclaimed that it would be forever the source of all prosperity and advancement in life. So by attuning the mind with it, which is the transcendental consciousness, one finds great intelligence, energy, happiness and harmony, and possessed of these, no limit to the fulfillment of desires. So in this verse, Bhagavan is pointing to the prosperity of the individual as one result of yajna. And in the following verse, in the next verse, he goes on to show another of its advantages. Here ends the essence of the verses 9 and 10, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Maharishi's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Now I will share a few words. The word yajna or yagna, which is the meaning is sacrifice. It is in general referred to a fire worship ritual, but it has a deep philosophical significance, and it is not known to its practitioners. Many Hindus perform this religious ritual without any understanding. Now just recalling this procedure, in order to perform this ritual called yajna, a mud or brick walled trough called a yajna kunda is first built. The priests or the pandits place firewood in the kunda and light it. They invite many people. There is always a congregation to do the yajna. The pandits sit around the fire and chant the mantras. And this large gathering of people used to bring grain from their homes and deposit it as a big pile. So while the pandits are chanting, then all the participants of the yajna would take a handful of grain from the pile and offer it to the fire along with the ghee and clarified butter. And in this ritual, they would offer the whole stock of the grain, and the flames, the fire of the flames would shoot up. And this then is taken as a blessing by the fire god or the Agni Devata. When all the samidhas, the wood and the grains, and are all burnt and reduced to ashes, then the participants of the yajna receive these ashes as prasada or the gift, and they would usually smear this ash on the forehead in 3 stripes. And then the yajna was concluded with a visit to the nearby temple. So this is how the yajnas were done in the olden days. In general, all self-centered activities, all selfish activities and actions which are violating the laws of nature or dharma are opposed to yajna. So here the entire yajna symbolizes how human activities can be converted into worship in their respective fields. Now we understand that all the actions that are being performed are coming from the vasanas, the impressions, the samskaras and the patterns. The various forms and names are there, but they all represent the vasanas from the past. So here the kunda represents the whole field of activity, and the offering of grain to the kunda symbolizes the offering of each individual's abilities in his own field of activity for a common cause. And the whole purpose of this is that everyone works in a spirit of surrender to that cause without entertaining any selfish motives. Then the whole of the action becomes spiritual. It is generally understood that one must eradicate or get rid of the vasanas or desires to unveil the self. And so in this yajna spirit, one surrenders to a higher purpose in life, working without selfish motives. Because all selfish and egocentric activities only produce more vasanas, more desires, and more agitations and suffering. So here these vasanas are offered into the yajna, and burning of fuel in the communal kunda symbolizes this. So the result is the exhaustion of these vasanas and desires, and in essence offering these vasanas and desires which are motivated by personal benefit and then raising them to a higher cause, a much more nobler ideal. The 3 stripes of ash smeared on the forehead would signify the transcendence of the sattvic, rajasic and tamasic vasanas, and entering the temple after the ritual would represent the attainment of God consciousness, the realization of the Supreme Self. So this is the symbolism of the yajna. So here a person attains his supreme state through the yajna, and these yajna activities are supposed to exhaust the existing vasanas and unfold his divinity. So again, yajna means sacrificial actions dedicated to a higher ideal. Here again, the Creator created humanity together with the yajna, declaring, by this may you propagate, and with this you attain all your desired objects. So here on a practical point, it is important to always cherish a higher goal and higher desires, and by aspiring for self-realization, all the desires pertaining to the lower consciousness automatically diminish and fall off. And here the highest goal is the self-realization, knowing the transcendental consciousness, and then growing into the cosmic consciousness, and then the God consciousness. This is the highest. Yajna, by its very word, sacrificing the selfish desires to gain a higher ideal, and then one works tirelessly and selflessly in a spirit of yajna, then all material and spiritual benefits will be showered upon this individual. And this is the law of nature. So this law of nature or dharma says that you get what you deserve and not what you desire. So you desire the highest, and then nature will provide you all the best, and this is what you deserve. We will continue on this very important subject and how to work with the spirit of yajna and how to gain this God consciousness, just working with the spirit of yajna and fulfilling all the desires that you want to fulfill without violating the laws of nature or the dharma. We will look into it in more detail. And for now, I will end here. Jai Gurudev, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.
अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञाना